Hi guys, how you doing? I hope you're all well. My name is Jasmine. I'm a practicing social worker and I share my experiences here on the channel, both social work and non-social work related. Go ahead and subscribe if you're interested. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you all about confidentiality, what it entails, and how you can explain confidentiality to your clients. So what is confidentiality? Confidentiality basically means that everything that a client tells you will remain between you and the client, and you have a responsibility to the client to keep this information confidential and not speak to anyone about it unless you have their permission to do so. The reason why confidentiality, is a legal obligation for every social worker is to allow clients to feel confident and comfortable enough to open up to us so that we're able to provide the necessary support to them. So in saying that, there are limits to our confidentiality, and the limits come into place when there's a child that we believe is at risk of harm, or the person that we're working with we believe is at risk of harm to themselves or to another person. So if that comes up, then we have a legal obligation to make a report about that to someone else. So that can be with or without the consent of the client. So there are circumstances where our obligations to society as a whole will override our obligations to the client, and that's why even though we have an obligation to the client to maintain everything that they say to us be between us and them without sharing with other organizations or another person without their permission. If there's anything that puts them at risk or puts a child at risk, then our obligation to report that overrides our obligation to maintain confidentiality with the client. And this is something that we're obviously required to make clients aware of before we commence any sessions with them. It's possible that if you spoke to a client about your obligations to make reports when there are things that make you believe that a child is at risk of harm and stuff like that, might impact on what the client is willing to share with you, and that's okay. That's obviously part of the client's right to self-determination. They have a right to withhold what they want to withhold and share what they want to share, and you work with them based on the information that they have shared with you. In circumstances where we're required to make a report, about like a child at risk of harm or a client at risk of harm to themselves, obviously it can be quite tricky because we risk losing the relationship that we have with a client, because they might not necessarily be happy because they have built rapport with us. They want things to remain confidential between us and them, but obviously when these legal obligations come into place, that can impact on the relationship you have with the client. Personally, in my practice, if things come up and I need to make a report to say child protection because there are concerns of safety issues for a child, generally I try to involve the client if it's appropriate in making that report, so that they're able to say whatever they think, or whatever input they want to have, they're able to include it whilst I'm making that report. And that can be helpful because then they're there, they can hear what I'm saying, and they know exactly what I'm saying. They know I'm being honest in all that I'm saying. And also I tend to put forward all the strengths that the client has indicated as well. So being that I work in domestic violence, there are instances where the child might witness, say, an abusive incident, but it's important that I highlight as well that the person that's being abusive is not my client. My client is the victim, and my client is actually engaging in counseling and is engaging in the necessary supports to make sure she and the children are safe. So that kind of counteracts the fact that the child is at risk, and FACS which is Family and Community Services, they would take that into consideration before they make any decisions regarding the child or regarding the family. So I find that that can be quite empowering for clients. So, you know, you can work in such a way that you're not putting the client at a disadvantage. In other circumstances where, you know, you're not able to involve the parent in making that report to whoever it is that you need to make it to, you can also, you know, be really careful around the information that you share with the other service. You can, you know, pick what they need to know and leave out the rest. They don't necessarily need to know all the details of what's going on between you and the client and everything that the client has disclosed to you. You can give specifics of that particular incident that you're concerned about and leave it at that, and that can, you know, be beneficial for the client sometimes as well. So generally, this is how I you know, introduce confidentiality to a client before I start providing support to them. You might want to rephrase this however you want, but so long as you're covering the, you know, the important points, that's the main thing. So this is what I generally say. Before we begin, I need to let you know that as part of my responsibilities to you, everything we discuss here will remain confidential. I will keep it this way unless I have concerns that the child is at risk of harm or you are at risk of harm to yourself. Ask them, you know, do you understand this? You know, do you have any questions around this? So if there's concerns that, you know, a child is at risk of harm, then I'll have to make a report to Family and Community Services. If I have concerns that you are at risk of harm to yourself, then I might need to contact the ambulance and then they can get you into hospital. And then I'll find out if they have any questions around it. So yeah, this is pretty much it. How do you guys phrase confidentiality if it's not something that you've had to disclose to a client or anything like that? What ideas do you have around how you might phrase it? If you had to disclose confidentiality to a client, how would you phrase it if you haven't done so before? Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I guess I'll see you in my next video. Take care, guys. Bye.